My only question is, today is my daughter's 15th birthday. She's having cake right now, but I chose to do this because, as I mentioned, I attended Notre Dame, and in 1983, the only security that Notre Dame High School had was Brother Benjamin. And in light of what happened last week, and in light of the fact that this is Connecticut, post Sandy Hook, where we've done absolutely zero since what took place in Sandy Hook, what are all of your solutions as far as school security and our kids and their 15th birthdays?
Thank you, Vinny. I appreciate that question. The safety and security of all the people of the state of Connecticut is the most solemn obligation of the next governor, but most especially about our kids, because that's the next generation of people that we hope to pass this state on to. And you talked about Sandy Hook, and you saw what happened in Florida this past week. Here's what it comes down to, folks. If we're going to make schools safe, we have to have a comprehensive approach that focuses on many different factors. A deadly weapon is made deadly by a deadly person. And we have not invested enough funding in mental health and mental wellness in this state. That was one of my biggest problems with SB 1160. It didn't make the needed investments in mental health, and it certainly didn't make the needed investments in school security. When I led Trumbull for 8 years, we didn't have school resource officers when I was elected. When I left office, we had them not only in our high school, but also our middle school, because I want our law enforcement to be able to work with our educators to identify potential problems or threats before they materialize and to head them off. We have got to invest in school security. We have to invest in mental health. Law enforcement and educators need to work hand in hand in heading off problems before they materialize. We have to deal with an opioid epidemic in this state that compromises the safety of kids here in the state of Connecticut. So, Vinny, to answer your question, we passed very strict gun control in 2012 after Sandy Hook. Before that, we had some of the most strict gun control laws in the country. It can't just be a conversation about gun control. We have to talk about school safety, school security, security enhancements, working with educators and law enforcement, investing in mental health, and making sure law enforcement has the resources they require.
Thank you. My heart goes to the victims of the families in Florida. But we have to understand one thing, that we protect the president with guns. We protect the vice president with guns. We protect the congressman, congresswoman with guns. We protect the senators with guns. You go to the state offices, they're protected with guns. You go to banks, they're protected with guns. You go to police stations, they're protected with guns. Yet the most precious thing that we have in our lives, our children, are not protected. As a society, we have failed them. So if I were your governor, there would be an executive order that every school in our state will provide security, armed security for our children. We have retired police officers and military people in our state who have served us well, who have protected you and I, and we can trust them to protect our children. So I would issue an executive order that our children are going to be protected, and you can count on me.
Like you, Vinny, and many in this room, I'm a parent first. And I have 2 daughters that go to school every day, and I hope and pray they come home safely. And we watched this heinous act in Parkland and others around the country. We have a crisis. Our kids are being killed in many instances. Look, our elected officials need to act. And I agree with what Tim said. We need a comprehensive approach to this. There's not going to be one thing that solves this problem. Why aren't elected officials coming together on common sense thing around background checks? Why aren't we doing more to protect our schools? Why aren't they working more closely with with law enforcement to close some of these data gaps we have and share information to get ahead of the problem before it happens? There are many things that need to be looked at on that. So this is a heinous act. And I think you all believe too, that it's time for our elected officials in Washington here to step forward and address this crisis in a competent way that addresses this problem, so our kids come home from school tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Our children, the most precious things any one of us can have. You talked about your 15th birthday for your daughter. My daughter lives 3 houses away from me, and she has 3 little girls. And for all of us, each and every one, Our prayer every morning is when those kids get on the school bus, they come home safe. Public safety is one of the priorities of the state government. And as a governor, as your governor, I will look into 3 things that are critical. Number 1, school security. It has to be provided. It was provided in the bill that was passed in 2013. But what happened? It was not funded. It was an empty promise made, and that is unacceptable, will not happen as your next governor. We will have to look seriously at mental health. That's what triggers. That's where all these massacres happen. So for us to look at early signals and begin there is what I would propose, not just propose. Proposal is easy, talk is easy. You've got to walk that talk and make sure that you provide the funding. And the third important factor is to get families involved. Our society has to come together in one voice, parents, teachers, schools, and the legislators, to make sure that we have a safe environment day in and day out. And when your child gets on the bus to school, you do not need to worry, you should not worry whether the child is going to be coming back home. Thank you.
I got married at 19, and so my kids are grown. But I have 2 children that are 2 grandchildren that are in high school, and 1 grandchild who's in middle school. My wife is also an elementary school teacher. She was teaching on the tragic day at Sandy Hook in Fairfield schools. So this is something that I can very much relate to. Clearly, school security is a priority. Clearly, we need to do something with regard to mental health. Connecticut has some of the toughest gun laws in the United States, but I also think that we, while protecting the First Amendment, the Second Amendment rights of our citizens and the Constitution of the state of Connecticut, more has to be done with regard to background checks. We clearly have some flaws in the background check system. We have to look at where you have devices that will convert a legal weapon into an illegal weapon. And so, yes, school security, yes, mental health, protect our constitutional rights, but there are some issues that we have to focus on further than we have already. Thank you.
As someone who taught high school for 14 years at Danbury High School, I'm acutely aware of the challenges of being able to provide security for a building that houses over 3,000 students now. That's a difficult and challenging problem. So we do have to have a comprehensive approach. And really it comes down to 3 things that we've got to do to ensure the safety and security of our students. First thing is we've got to break down silos. We've got to get agencies talking to each other. Police department's got to talk to our educators. Educators got to talk to our youth agencies in each community. We've got to identify kids that are engaged in risky behavior and have early intervention on those children to make sure that they don't carry things out to the extreme. So it's really important, because right now we're running a bifurcated or divided system where people can't talk back and forth by law in some cases, by statute, and by federal law. Second, we have to invest in mental health. You've heard that already. Over the last 3 or 4 years, the state government has slowly withdrawn mental health funding to, again, identify young people that are engaged in risky behavior. And finally, the third thing, something that I proposed at the legislature in 2013, was that we've got to have a common platform for training our security guards. Most schools in Connecticut now have some form of security. In Danbury, we call them safety advocates, and they spend their whole time basically concerned about the safety of the building. The problem is the training changes and varies from community to community. And so that issue means that when you have a response like we had at Sandy Hook, where it was a regional response, led of course by the Newtown PD, but other police departments show up, we've got to know that that person in the building who is dealing with the situation has been trained on the same platform. That requires an investment. But I don't think that we can really play games with the investment in our children. That's the most important thing, important function government can do, and it's something that we need to look at very carefully.
I appreciate this is the first question of the night. It's probably one of the most important topics we can talk about. Many of you know me as the Chief Financial Officer of the City of Stamford. What you may not know is I've spent over 25 years in public safety, and I currently serve as the Emergency Management Director for the Town of New Canaan, my wife Sarah and our 4 daughters. So I've got the responsibility, and I serve on a team of administrators and law enforcement professionals who are solely responsible for the safety of over 4,200 students in our schools. And it's a situation that we all take extremely seriously. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we go through on a regular basis. The goal here is to balance safety and security with the nurturing environment of educational school. It's very difficult. If we wanted to, we could solve this problem by making every school a fortress. It's not that difficult. The problem is we have to preserve the educational environment where kids can thrive. A couple things we've got to talk about. We are in a financial crisis as a state, and I am the chief financial officer. So most of what you hear me talk about is financial problems. But here's the sad reality. You cannot do good things when you're in crisis. Yesterday, I called on the governor to make funding available for every school in the state of Connecticut that wishes to have a school resource officer available. We can no longer have, and this is not the solution we want. No one wants to have law enforcement in their schools, but it's a sad reality in today's times. But we cannot allow a financial decision to be the only gatekeeper between having a law enforcement officer in our schools versus not. We have got to find the money, and it's hard to say you have to spend more money, but the reality is this is too precious. Our kids are too precious not to spend the money to provide a law enforcement officer who can get in the fabric of the community of our schools to work, to understand what the challenges are with our students, and to be a different lens on the problems that administrators are presented with. Also, mental health issues. Again, when you're in crisis, you cannot do good things. Just like the governor is forcing Medicaid residents out of nursing homes because it's cheaper to care for them at home, we have closed our inpatient facilities for mental health. And the byproduct of that is we have no place to treat our mentally ill patients. So we've got to find a way to peel money off of our tight budget already to put it where it matters the most. And there's no greater cause than protecting our young people in our state.
As the chief elected official of the city, one of your top priorities is public safety, which is all-encompassing. The issue of school safety has become one of a national problem that has evolved over the last several years. I would recall that many years ago when I was teaching and coaching basketball in Bridgeport, that I was a personal witness to 3 shootings. And I have understood how this problem has evolved over the course of time. And so when you come from a perspective of dealing with the public, you understand how many things have changed within our society that affect the way we think, the way we live, and the way we present ourselves. And it has now come home to roost that when parents are not diligent in parenting and you release the disciplines within society, you pay a price for that. Finance is certainly a part of it, but it's an all-encompassing equation. You know, since Sandy Hook, there are many schools across our state that have taken the opportunity to do entry door fortification, tempered glass in the schools that are bulletproof. We've increased our security in terms of personnel. We have police officers in our schools, and we have surveillance. And so with all of that, even when that falls short, the public has a responsibility to step up to the plate as well. You know, the slogan is when you see something, say something. Couldn't be truer in this day and age than it is now. And so if people think that the government has the cure-all for all of these things, I would tell you to take a closer look. That it's going to require leadership, and yes, government has a significant role, but we live in a very open and vulnerable society, and it has had a great impact on all of us. So, you know, yes, money is part of the equation, and there are many municipalities within the state that have the ability to increase their securities, and they have. And so the ones that haven't need our priorities. And as governor, I would advocate a more uniform type of security system that can be employed across the state, particularly in our bigger schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you for your thoughts on that very important